All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. So there was some advancement today on the quote-unquote big, beautiful bill, but was there any progress gained on what you could call one complicated call? The president held a phone call today with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Trump saying that Russia and Ukraine will immediately begin negotiations on a ceasefire and that the Vatican has offered to host talks between potentially Putin and Vladimir Zelensky. President Trump speaking afterwards.
Well, I want to thank everybody. We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. We're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up.
Our Kelly Meyer, shortly after that, in the Oval Office with the president.
You mentioned that you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine yesterday. So what makes you think that he wants peace?
Well, he's in a war, you know. I mean, nobody said don't. They're fighting. They're attacking each other, and people are dying all the time.
But that's only one test. There's also one on the home front, you could say, the big, beautiful bill, as the president likes to label it. The bill passing through the House Budget Committee, but it still has several more steps in the House of Representatives. Before then, it could even get into the Senate, and then that's a whole nother issue. With some Republicans balking at the price tag, it's anything but a sure thing. Full panel here with me now. Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff in the first Trump White House, News Nation contributor. Lindsey Granger, News Nation contributor as well. Denise Gitsham, News Nation political contributor and former aide in the George W. Bush administration. And Dan Cannonen, former Battleground States director for both the Biden and Harris campaigns. How about those titles? Happy Monday, y'all. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Happy
here
Monday.
On the Hill. I noticed something different from Trump, Mick, the president. Afterwards, the call with Putin, he put out the statement and basically said something to the effect of, it's in their hands now. They're the ones that have to negotiate it. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's a tone shift from Donald Trump. What does it say about where he thinks things are?
First tone wasn't working. So, but two takeaways. Number one, the call was 2.5 hours. Even with translation, that's a long time for a call. And you have to sort of assume, unless someone tells you different, that means it went well. Bad phone calls go for a very brief period of time. So talk for an hour and a half on the merits, probably a good call. But here's the other issue. The talks are going to begin immediately, okay? Trump can get away from the I'll solve it in 24 hours. I think people took that as hyperbole. But you walk out of the Oval Office into the Rose Garden and say, I just hung up the phone with Putin. Talks are going to start immediately. They need to start immediately, and be curious to see if that actually happens or not.
You know, Trump has put so much of his political capital on resolving this issue that it almost shifted the onus of responsibility onto his shoulders and away from Putin and Zelensky in a way, because he campaigned on it. He said, we're going to solve this on the first day. And so what I think you're seeing is him saying, I want to own this because I want to be the deal maker in chief internationally, the diplomat in chief, the everything in chief. Right. But at the same time, he can't do it. And what you've seen is a shift away from just the sticks, because Russia's the most sanctioned country in the world right now. There are no more sanctions we can put on. If there were, he would have done it to cause them to change their actions. So he has to include something like trade in that mix that actually is a carrot to get Putin.
So that's where I was going next. Is that the carrot? Is that what's going to solve this, or no?
No, I think that we have to remember that Trump already spoke to Putin earlier this year in February, and that didn't go anywhere. He had multiple statements and tweets that this was going to be solved and that there was some kind of solution. Same 24 hours. We've been giving him 5 months of 24 hours, and nothing has been resolved. Right. But I think it's important to understand, like, this is at this point mocking the United States, in my opinion. I think when you look at what's happening, he had a huge bombardment on Sunday of Ukraine in the midst of understanding that this phone call was going to happen. Putin skipped completely the Istanbul talks when Ukraine...
those were like lower-level delegations.
Right, because he wouldn't show up because, you know, Zelensky was asking him, please show up, let's solve this. So he kind of is just doing whatever he wants. And I think when we start to cower to a dictator, that kind of shows that America is not willing to stand on its own 2 feet and kind of sets the tone for how we... Yeah, I do think he's cowering, because I think with not just more sanctions, but more action behind your words and more enforcement, and not treating Ukraine like...
Did you say the same thing about Biden?
Oh, I think that they should treat Ukraine like the victim that it is.
Did Biden do enough on sanctions? Did Biden do enough on aid? I mean, what would you have Trump do that Biden didn't do?
I mean, I think he should just take a different tone. Like, he takes the tone with Ukraine as if they are the aggressor and not the victim. He's telling Zelensky, basically, let Russia keep illegally annexed Crimea and call it a day. And I don't think that's a good resolvable solution for anyone.
Yeah, no, look, I think Denise is right about the onus part. I think he has put this squarely on his shoulders. I don't understand why, honestly, except for arrogance. He didn't have to run on this issue. This is not the #1 issue for voters in the election. But he said, I can do this on day one. I think he's a guy that clearly likes to make deals and imagine himself as a deal maker and imagine himself as someone who can create and use leverage. He talks about that all the time. He's got leverage over Zelensky because we deliver the dollars for the bombs.
Right.
He's got no leverage over Putin. I think that frustrates him. But he did say on day one we're fixing this. It's proving to be pretty difficult to do that. And I agree. I think that the whole idea that he's going to praise Putin, perhaps coming out of the fact that he has no leverage, while he denigrates Zelensky and our allies, is not a great way long-term for this relationship.
You think Trump has no leverage?
Well, if he does, he's not finding it right now.
Look, this is tough. I think they're frustrated. I think he really thought this would be easier to solve than it is. But I just come back to not looking backwards, looking forward. What's going to happen next? Now I fully expect there to be a conversation between Ukraine and Russia. And if there isn't, I'm going to want to know why. And I expect he's going to want to know why, because he walked out of that meeting believing there's going to be a conversation.
One complicated call, or one big complicated call, however I wanted to put it, with Putin.
You like that, don't you?
There was the big, beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful bill, big, complicated call.
Yeah, Republicans delivered, though, for him in the House, Denise,
Yes.
Overnight. There's still a long way to go here.
Yeah.
With all of this.
But what you're seeing is two things. One, Jodey Arrington, who's one of my dearest friends, is incredibly talented with people. People love him. They wanted to work with him. It got done. The second thing is, Nick and I understand this as people who've run for Congress. You won, I didn't, but I still went through the process. And what you know is that in the next few months, people are making decisions about whether they're going to jump into a race. And nobody wants to be primaried from a Trump endorsed candidate because they didn't get in line. So this is the timing where every member of Congress, every House member is saying, do I want to go down as a person who blocked Trump? When the latest polls show that 60+% of Republicans are supportive and believe in Trump, while only about 39%, which is relatively high compared to historically, but only 39% of people believe in congressional leadership on the GOP
well,
side.
that's why when you said kudos to Jodey Arrington, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, no, this is all about Trump at the end of the day.
But you have to have good deputies that can get things done, and people want to work with Jodey.
But I think this is a litmus test for the Republican Party because you said there's a lot of the party that's MAGA loyalists, but then there's also part of the party that's fiscal conservatives that have been fiscal conservatives and can't vote on this bill. It makes no sense for them. Then there's people who actually care about the re-election campaign, the midterms, and their lifestyle moving forward. Well, maybe not if they're going to cut Medicaid, like Senator Josh Hawley saying, you send that bill down here with Medicaid cuts, how are we going to move forward? So I think we have to have these real conversations of like, you're having this bill come out on the backs of Americans that put you in office. Medicaid is not only for certain people, it's for everyone.
A lot on the line for the president and Republicans. What's on the line for your side of the aisle?
Well, I think we have to communicate what's happening to voters. I mean, the old adage in Washington is don't tell me your priorities, show me your budget. And in this budget, to your point, there'll be Medicaid cuts. There's going to be an explosion of the deficit. There'll be high-income earner benefits and low-income earner pain. And I think that's the polar opposite of what Donald Trump campaigned on, Republicans campaigned on. They promised to deliver on lower prices. There's nothing in this bill to do that. And instead, they're going to reward high-income earners, cut Medicaid, explode the deficit, and we have to be clear about what they're doing and take it to voters and make that case. If we fail to do that, that's on us, but we have to prosecute that case aggressively.
Here was the president on whether or not this gets done. Watch.
Wow, I wish we could get that vote. Some other things. We have another bill coming up. Do you think we'll get that vote? Maybe not. We should, but we probably won't.
Where are you tonight, Mick?
They have to pass something. Because if they don't do anything, and Congress is really good at doing nothing. They're better at doing nothing than doing something, okay? But doing nothing here is effectively the largest tax increase in history, which is what's driving these fiscal conservatives so crazy, is because they don't want to blow a hole in the budget, but they also don't want to raise taxes. And I think that's the difficulty that they've got. I think ultimately they do pass something. This is the Trump tax cuts. What does Trump care about as much as anything in the whole world? The brand. This is his deal, be like Obama defending Obamacare.
Right.
It's got his name on it. They're going to pass something to extend most of the tax cuts. The rhetoric, though, Dan, is so hollow because you can't give, if half the country doesn't pay income tax, you can't give them a tax cut. And so they're not paying anything. So the rhetoric is so hollow.
If you're taking 14 million people and kicking them off Medicaid,
right?
If you're
but
cutting
Medicaid
SNAP
is not
benefits,
for everybody. This is not.
It's not for everyone.
But if you're doing those things to pay for these high-income or tax cuts, and you could put some millionaire and billionaire tax hikes on the table and actually make it pay for it, but they're not going to do that.
To make healthy men work for a benefit.
Yes.
It doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with policy.
The ultimate result that would be 14 million people, CBO said this, off of Medicaid. That will be the reality. And you could pay for that.
Should they be on there in the first place?
Yeah.
I guess is
I'll
the
give you that
policy
for
question,
it.
not the budget question.
Yes.
So this morning, Senator Murphy was saying it was 10 million, but maybe it's 14. If you look at the number of able-bodied people who are on Medicaid that aren't on other, things that would say that they're not able-bodied, they're not on disability,
right.
it's 6.3 million Americans. Between New York City and California alone, where everyone is eligible, undocumented, people who are not American citizens, literally we get to 8.4 million people. That's already, and that's not counting the 11 other states and the District of Columbia that has undocumented migrants that are on Medicaid.
Just some of the conversation. You heard it from both sides
Yeah.
here on the Hill. Thank you all.